Leslie.
Hi, Leo.
Laguna Beach. Hi, Leslie.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I love you to pieces. You're like English or computer immersion for me because I don't understand much about tech stuff, but when I listen to you, I start to recognize words and concepts, and I appreciate that.
That's really nice. Thank you. That's kind of my goal. That's kind of my life goal, is to make this stuff accessible.
Half the time I'm clueless, but then it's like, oh, okay, that makes a little sense.
Boy, that makes me happy to hear you say thank you. What can I do now to repay you?
Oh, I'm on the air. I didn't realize that. I thought we were
what?
On
no, yeah, I just said hello. No, yeah, we're on the millions of people heard you pledge your love for me. I hope you understand that.
Yeah, I was honest. Okay, I'll get to the point. I have problems with group text, and sometimes, not always. And I have one particular group of friends. I can send them a group text.
Yeah.
They all respond. They all get the response, but I don't.
Oh, man. Let me ask you a question. Are you on an iPhone?
I have a Galaxy S6.
That's the problem. They all have iPhones.
iMessaging or
yeah. You're green. They're blue. This is the problem.
Well, how can I get my good messages from my kids who have iPhones? They're all fine.
This drives me crazy because it's Apple. So
is it a fight between the two of them?
Yeah, Apple has this messages program which they use for texting to everybody, but it works a little better if you're texting to an iPhone. And group messaging, for instance, that would be a perfect example. You sent them a group message, but they know you're not on an iPhone, and they're all on iPhones. In fact, I think there was a Saturday Night Live bit about this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I got off of the G messaging thing and onto their old style messaging.
It doesn't help because you don't have an iPhone. That's the problem.
What's the solution? What is this got to be?
Hang on, and we'll find a solution when we come back. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Oh, talked with Leslie a little bit off the air to kind of walk her through this. It's very frustrating. I understand. More frustrating for those of us who are not in the Apple ecosystem. People who have iPhones and Macintoshes and iPads love this because it all kind of works together, and you can message each other, and they're all living in this beautiful world of blue text bubbles. I can never remember. Is it blue if you're all iPhone? It's blue, and it's green if you're somebody else. It was a big step backwards, and I'm extremely angry with you, Apple, for doing this. Remember, in the early days, one of the reasons text messaging didn't take over so quickly in the United States is because if you were on Verizon, you couldn't SMS. That's the original text messaging. You couldn't SMS somebody on AT&T. The two systems didn't interoperate. Maybe 15 years ago, we fixed that, and that's when text messaging took off in the U.S. The same thing happened with email. Same thing happened, remember, with instant messaging. When you had, we call them in the business, we call them silos. Closed systems, then people can only talk to other people in the silo. But what you really want to do is have open systems that everybody can talk to everybody else. And in fact, that's when these things take off. That's when email took off. In the early days of email, if you had MCI mail, which I did, you could only talk to people, you could only email people who had MCI mail. Genie to Genie, CompuServe to CompuServe. But once universal internet email began, email took off. Same thing happened with instant messaging. Same thing happened with SMS, text messaging. And then Apple went backwards. Now, the problem is this is good for Apple and good for people who live only in the Apple world, but it's bad for everybody else. Apple's messages can sort of talk to regular SMS texting. There is a gateway, but it doesn't work well. It colors the messages differently, so you are kind of segregated. And things like group messaging, special features that are unique to Apple's messaging, Apple folks just use them. Oh, yeah, well, I can send you a voice message, an audio message, or because text, a picture, because it works. But what they forget is it only works inside the Apple universe. One solution, of course, would be to use a third-party application. That's why WhatsApp was worth so much money to Facebook when it bought it, because this application was used by millions around the rest of the world where SMS hadn't taken off yet, or it was too expensive mostly to use SMS. And so WhatsApp can work on an iPhone, an Android phone, a Windows phone, any kind of, on a desktop. And so you can message everybody, but you have to get everybody to use that. And the problem is if you're using an Apple device, you already have messages, and it works wonderfully. As long as you're only talking to people on Apple computers and Apple phones and Apple tablets. Then it works great. So one solution, the good news is Leslie did have some Apple devices. She had an iPad and an Apple desktop. But that's probably why this was happening. She had a messages set up. It wasn't on her phone, but she had it on her iPad. I told her, go look and see if those group messages you're not getting are showing up in your iPad. I bet they are. Because Apple's saying, well, wait a minute, she has an Apple device. We'll just send it there. But that's the problem is, you have to have an Apple device. I think it's a step backwards. I think it's really a shame because that's not the promise of computing. The promise of computing is open, transparent, easy communication, not, well, I can only talk to people in my group. That's what we used to have. Of course, it's good for Apple, right? Because then you're more likely to buy an iPhone. In fact, that single problem alone is probably enough to get people like Leslie to just say, oh, the heck with it. I'm not going to buy an Android device. I'll just buy an iPhone because all my friends are using iPhone. I'm bloody-minded. My wife, my kids, everybody I know uses iPhones, but I'm bloody-minded. I like my Android phones. I'm sticking with Android. I don't care if I'm a greenie.